You're tuning in to Wellfound's Ask a Recruiter, where we sit down with recruiters to share their advice on the hiring process. Hi, everyone. I actually think we can get started right away because there's quite a few people here already, which is great. I see a couple of things asking to record and all that kind of stuff. This whole session is going to be recorded and we'll be posting it on YouTube, and you'll get a email follow-up with some resources and other things that we've mentioned during the call, either early next week or even closer to the end of this week. So just so you know, you'll have access to this information moving forward. So my name is Rachel. I'm here with Wellfound, and today's Ask a Recruiter is all about how to leverage AI in your career to navigate this rapid change we're all experiencing. The Q&A is with Jassi Starleaf, who's a senior talent partner at Learneo, and I'll introduce her more properly in just a moment. While people are rolling in, I'm just going to let us know a little bit about how the session's going to work. So first of all, this is a pure Q&A session. So we're going to start with some intake survey questions to warm up. So these are questions directly from you when you signed up. While we're talking, you can ask your additional questions in the chat. And it would be really helpful to me if you indicate if you want to read them out loud or if you'd like me to ask for you. If not, I'm just going to ask if you want to read out loud when it comes up to choosing the questions. And then during the live Q&A, after we go through the prepared questions, you can also raise your hand if a question comes up for you. So you can use the little emoji hand raise tool. It's usually at the bottom of the Zoom screen to let me know you'd like to speak and ask out loud. And then lastly, I just want to prompt you to please be respectful. Jassi has been really generous with her time here, and we're a community. We're really into bringing candidates together to make the job seeking process a little less lonely. So just like kind of keep your questions thoughtful. And then I just want to take a little moment to talk about Wellfound, just in case you've joined through LinkedIn and don't know what Wellfound is. Wellfound was formerly AngelList Talent. It's been around for over 10 years. It's really known in the startup community and tech worker community. So engineers, product managers, designers, tech sales, those sorts of roles are all really popular in our system. It started with startups, but now includes like some larger enterprise public companies as well. And we help you get hired by cutting edge startups. So we've made over 8 million matches. We have over 150,000 tech jobs and over 10 million startup ready candidates. So you'll see a couple other people on the call who are from Wellfound with the purple background. We're from the product support team, and we're the real people that you'll reach out to if you need help while using our platform. So please don't hesitate to write to us by email or by chat if you're online. So now for the good stuff. I want to introduce Jassi. Jassi Starleaf is a senior talent partner at Learneo with over 7 years of full cycle recruiting expertise, specializing in AI and machine learning engineering, research, and data science roles. She has successfully scaled global engineering and technical teams from 0 to 1 across North America, Europe, and Asia for high growth startups and Series A to C funding. Known for solving troubled and hard-to-fill positions, Jassi has built engineering teams at Course Hero and Quillbot while pioneering advanced sourcing strategies. Her passion for leveraging technology in recruitment, and combined with her track record of closing top-tier technical talent, makes her a sought-after voice on AI's transformative impact in talent acquisition. So we're thrilled to have you here with us, Jassi. I know you're going to have some great insights.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you, and thanks for the introduction. So we'll get started. The first question, or the first two questions were around AI-powered job search. So finding and applying the right way, especially because there's a lot of disruption happening, and applying to jobs is no longer the same anymore. You have one resume and you submit it over to any company. That's changed now because now employers are receiving multiple candidates that are applying to one specific job. So in this critical time period, you're wondering, how do I stand out as a candidate among the thousands of other applicants that they received? How do I stand out? How do they find my resume or my skill sets more applicable to the job that I'm applying to? So this is what we're going to talk about. So the first question is, Christine asked earlier, was how to use AI for job search without being obvious you are using it. As a recruiter, I can tell everyone's using AI nowadays. So it's okay. And you don't have to shy away that you're using AI. And, you can just be honest that you're leveraging AI. And I think it's helpful and it's advantaged because timing is the essence. So if you leverage AI and let's just say you've come across a job instead of like spending several hours thinking about it, what are some of the, projects that you have worked on? Imagine like saying, I'm applying, go to like, for example, Perplexity, Claude, or Gemini, or any of the AI tools out there and say, I'm applying to this job. Help me frame my resume. And, let's focus on what are the keywords that I need to target. You focus on like those keywords, and then you provide specific examples of what are those, like, how do you, represent those skill sets by here's the keywords that you use and here was the outcome based on those keywords. So I've been getting this question a lot, and the truth is using AI in your job search is smart. And if you use it as a collaborator but not as like a copy and paste solution, you should be fine. So use it as like a guiding point, and find out what are the keywords that you need to use, leverage those keywords, and then also justify your experience based on those keywords. And then the focus is also like personalizing your resume after those keywords. So, it'll help you with like brainstorming bullet points for your resume. And then it helps up like clean up grammar, and then structure a compelling story for you, because I don't know what it is, but with AI, you just sound so much better. Like, even though if you're a great writer, there's always an opportunity to tweak your writing or to make it sound more impressive based on, the tone of the job description or the language of the job description. And also, it's really helpful because you're not just like, relying on yourself, but then you're also like running it by something else, or think of it as like, a colleague or, a friend that's sitting there right beside you and double checking, does this sound good? Is there anything that I can do to tweak it? So those are very helpful. It just helps you be more confident as a candidate. So focus on the input and feed it with your experience. Like, if you're like overwhelmed as a candidate where you're like, oh, I have so many great examples to share. How do I narrow it down to like just 3 bullet points versus like 20 or 10 bullet points? And I know this is something that candidates struggle a lot. And this is something that other candidates have asked me. So I recommend just like putting down everything that you have done and just start with brainstorming. Like, these are all the projects I've done. Now let's focus on the top 3 skill sets based on what the job requirement is. And AI can really help you narrow it down, like in terms of the bullet points. So I really recommend leveraging AI tools to brainstorm and create a specific resume for for that job that you're applying to. And then another thing is, use it to outline your resume, and also just to, make sure that it's specific to the job description, but then also like adding your flavor and your personalization. And then also like as a recruiter, I wouldn't leverage like certain keywords like, dynamic, professional, or, result oriented. Give specific examples why you're results oriented. So that's one of the things. If their AI is like recommending certain like keywords, and it sounds really vague, I would tweak it to, something that it sounds more like you and authentic. And then for Jamie,
Yeah.
she asked, oh, I'll pause.
Yeah. Do you want me to ask the questions out loud to you? Is that helpful? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So that was amazing and super helpful to hear about, and I love that idea of like making sure that they're quantifying and that the input that they have from the AI is still genuine. Jamai asked, to what degree should AI be used when applying? And I think specifically this question about, do recruiters reject cover letters that appear to be written by AI? I thought was really interesting. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this is a great question. Again, another great question that candidates, do submit a lot of cover letters. So one thing I would focus on is, yes, if you think a cover letter will help you, like lay out your skill sets better and you want to give a little bit more details about your background, feel free to share a resume. However, as a recruiter, I have seen a lot of resumes that I can tell it's written by AI because they're not giving specific examples. So that's something that I wouldn't, like I would just be like, okay, this cover letter didn't really help. But if you can provide specific like examples, key impacts, key metrics to the business, or key like ROI that it had on the end user, if you're a developer, or on the product, I think those are really helpful points that you should mention on the cover letter. But don't just add a cover letter for the sake of like adding a cover letter. And if you have one that's like leveraged by AI, leverage it, but then also add your personal touch and personal examples in the cover letter. So it just depends on the job. And if you really want to, if you really, really want this job and you really want to stand out, like leverage your own story and metrics and examples to the cover letter versus just using one like, vague one that just comes from like an AI tool. I'll pause if there's any questions. Nope. Okay. I think we're good to go then. I don't see any questions. Rachel, you're on mute.
Sorry. My bad. Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to write them in the chat. We can come back to them as well. Oh, okay. Tanya is asking, actually, we've got a follow-up question. What AI system does your company use for applicant screening? They asked for me to ask for them. So yeah, just curious about like what tools you're using actually in your role.
Yeah, so a lot of companies use an ATS system, which is an applicant tracking software. So if you like go to a job description, you can like go all the way to the bottom saying the ATS is greenhouse, or it's there's like several, like there's Ashby, there's Workday, there's several ATS systems out there. So like a lot of the tools that I like, ATS tool, like we use greenhouse at Learneo and Quillbot, and they have leverage, like there's like keyword searches within the applicant systems that you can filter candidates based on certain keywords that you're looking for, and that does help to filter candidates with a specific keywords. Obviously, the inbound quality, like the inbound activity has gone up in the recent years, especially since ChatGPT and a bunch of other AI tools have come. So I would say that because the volume is higher, I am focused on keywords as a recruiter. And then I do focus on, okay, individually looking at those resumes, the ones that, match the keywords. So that's why it's really important to have those keywords along with, okay, not just having the keywords, but also like providing specific examples that you can relate to the job. Does that answer your question? Was it Natalie or?
That was Tanya. She nodded. She says she's noisy where she is, so but she nodded.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So we can move on to this question, I think, which is about career focus strategy, sort of trying to weigh what best to focus on next. So agentic AI versus classical machine learning. So Bhavit asks, for data science or AI focused roles, where should I prioritize my efforts more? Should I go deeper into agentic agent tech, sorry, I'm not actually sure how to say that, AI, RAG pipelines or LLM related work, or focusing on strengthening my base in classic machine learning, deep learning, and computer vision? I thought that might be something that you'd be able to speak to.
Yeah, I've done a lot of like data science and machine learning hiring. So honestly, first of all, it depends on what is a job and where you're applying to, because some companies have a lot of like large language models and like NLP focused like type of products. So I would focus on one, where are you applying to? What is, if you're targeting a startup, research heavy teams, or roles that explicitly mention Gen AI or large language models or agent-based systems, then yes, double down on agentic AI, RAG pipelines, and large language model related tools would be a smart move. But these skills are still niche enough to stand out, but growing fast in demand. Having tangible projects that, like for example, like, NLP, large language models, like building a chatbot or summarization tools, or agent-based workflow can be a differentiator. So I would say don't abandon or move away from the fundamentals, but focus on, depending on what the company that you're applying to, what their product is focused on, and going from there. And then I'd say classic ML, deep learning, and even computer vision still matters. Especially even for larger companies, those are something that really, really matters in larger domains. But understanding what type of models they're using, the types of what is their technology focus there, would be something that I would recommend. And then I don't know if that answers this question, but if he's here, I can, feel free to hop on and ask further if this is a good start.
I'm not positive
Okay.
actually,
Yeah.
which means I think it's okay to move on, but I think that was a really good answer, and probably makes sense for people to do a little bit of self-reflection about where they really want to end up too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, I would focus on, where they want to end up, and then what their skill sets are, and how can they bridge that gap of, where they are and where they want to get to, and then providing examples around that.
awesome. Thank you. Um, okay, so we have another question, which is about how AI is reshaping the job market for new tech graduates, which is something that I think we're hearing a lot of feedback and even in news right now. So Julia asked, how is AI impacting the job market for individuals who have just recently graduated from college and are looking to kickstart their early career in tech? And maybe if you have any advice on how to navigate that too, that would be cool.
Yeah. That's a great question, Julia. This is actually a question that comes to top of mind for a lot of new grads recently. I know it's becoming more and more difficult, because we are going through a lot of disruption in the industry. So I would say that yes, AI is changing the game, but it's not replacing early career talent. If you can go back to the dot-com era, that created a lot of opportunities, especially when the iPhone came out in 2008 or 2007, right? There are a lot of opportunities then, where there are a lot of new mobile apps that were coming into the market, new products that the Uber Eats, the Instacart, or just bunch of mobile facing products. So there's a lot of AI is actually going to change a lot of new jobs. It's going to change a lot of jobs and also create new jobs. So I wouldn't be too worried about saying that the job market will become difficult. Yes, it's becoming very, very competitive, because there are more applicants in the market. But I'd say that one thing I would really focus on is that AI won't replace is your social and emotional intelligence. So thinking about, how you communicate, how you collaborate, how do you build relationships? Those are some examples that you can highlight in your resume as a candidate that AI won't be able to replace. So that's one. And then also higher cognitive skills. So for example, complex problem solving, critical thinking, and creativity. And you can actually mention how you've used AI in certain projects to brainstorm and come up with a solution, right? That you're focused on leveraging technology, and you're forward thinking, you're focusing on the future, and you're incorporating that into your day-to-day or into your projects. So also how do you focus on problem solving? So those are some things that I would also focus on. And then another thing is tech fluency. So yes, you know how to use these AI tools. You know how to code, but you also understand how systems work and how do you work alongside them. So those are some really important things, is that you understand, you have a tech fluency. And then in terms of EAI, impacting the job market for individuals who have recently just graduated from college and are looking to kickstart their career early on, I would focus on networking as much as you can. And also just maybe, connecting with your peers and hearing out from them, what do they do to get a job? And also just, volunteering if you can. So for example, when I started out in my career, I was working at a law firm as a legal secretary and an admin. And I remember they were paying me really well, but I took this pay cut. I joined a HR rotational internship program. and it was paying minimum wage at the time. I took a risk in my career, but at this point, I was willing to take a risk because I really wanted to get into HR and into recruitment at the time. So I took a pay cut, and now like it actually is paying me more, and I'm glad that I took that risk. So be willing to take risks early on in your career, because as you get older or as you advance in your career, it's going to be harder to take risks early on. So I would focus on taking risks. And I think you taking a risk early on in your career shows that you're hungry, you're willing to take on new problems or new challenges. And honestly, like, what's their ROI at the end of the day? It's going to help you get, where you want to go if you try. If you don't try, then you may have like regrets on about it. Like, I didn't get to try it. So I would say go with an open mindset and learn and ask questions. If there are some people that you admire, you would like to go there and have a job similar to them, reach out to them on LinkedIn, or just do like a Q&A session, or have coffee with someone and just hear it out. Like, what do they do to get there? Because the people skills are never going to go away. And imagine you find yourself talking to someone, and you're really curious about how they got there, and you want to get there too. Imagine if they're able to, like, introduce you to someone, saying, you know what, we're having a summer internship program. Why don't you, consider this? So I'd say, just, even if you don't see a lot of job opportunities, entry level job opportunities out there, reach out to the right people on LinkedIn, saying, hey, and leverage AI, like, say, I really want to reach out to this person. This is what their profile looks like. And I really want to have a chat, like how they started out in their career. And then create like a prompt and reach out to them via email, or just like a cold message on LinkedIn, and say, like, you're someone that I aspire to be, and just would love to have a conversation. And there's a lot of people that are willing to help out. Like, for example, like Rachel, she reached out to me about this Wellfound webinar. So it's just like, yeah, I'm happy to help people in the other market, because I know, like, my company or other companies are not hiring like they used to during COVID. And there's a lot of recruiters out there that, they're overwhelmed. They really want to help with people, but they're not able to help everyone. So doing something like this is an opportunity to help. And I'm sure there's others that are willing to help you as well.
I love that. Yeah, I'm so glad you said yes, Jesse. Thank you for being here. And yeah, I think just from doing some outreach to recruiters, the general experience has been that they genuinely, I think maybe part of the pleasure of their jobs is that they get to help people make these connections. And I don't think that's rare actually just with people. So I think that's a really wonderful prompt to leave them with. Okay, so we've got the next question, which sort of brings us back to the ATS question. So when AI makes every resume perfect, what are some strategies to stand out? So Michelle asked, I'm using ChatGPT to ensure my resume is 85 to 95% match with an ATS, and to each job application that they apply to. And I'm still not getting any callbacks. It seems like every resume recruiters receive, and it seems they receive 100 plus in less than 4 hours, is a high ATS match. So how do you stand out? How do you get callbacks?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think there's a lot of candidates right now in the market that are going through this, where if you act fast using the ChatGPT and AI tools, and actually there's a tool called Teal out there in the market right now that I highly recommend. And I can share it on the chat as well. It's called Teal. Let me just add it really quick. Okay, so I'm going to just share it here on the chat. Oh, Alejandro shared it. Perfect.
Yeah.
So Teal is a CRM for applicants in the market, and you can track, okay, I've applied to, it shows you like you've applied to X amount of companies. It personalizes your resume for you as a candidate. So I would recommend this if you're not like going through a job search or a career change. I would leverage something like Teal, because I actually have seen success stories on the other side where people are able to land on to jobs because they're moving fast, first of all, because a lot of candidates are using ChatGPT, right? And I think it's also like setting up your notifications on your LinkedIn or whatever job search platform you use, whether it's Glassdoor, Indeed, any of them. Have your notifications set. So, for example, like, you're looking for a specific type of role, let's just say operations manager role, have those alerts saved. So as soon as that job opens up, you're able to apply it right away. You go on Teal, you personalize your resume, and then that resume gets personalized based on your skill sets, what Teal knows about you, and then you tweak your resume and you add specific examples. Remember, personalize. So add personal examples based on what Teal has established. So then you can add more. So you stand out as a candidate. And once you're done modifying your resume, then I recommend applying to the job. And then you're one of the first few hundred candidates or so that have applied within 4 hours or so. So that's one strategy. And the thing is, like, one thing that I'm hearing a lot in the industry, and I'm seeing a lot, is a lot of employers are getting overwhelmed with lots of candidates, like thousands in many cases. So they actually end up turning off the job post because they have already received enough applicants that they need to review first this first batch of the candidates. So they turn it off. And that actually makes it difficult for, let's just say you're like, oh, I really wanted this job. I really wanted to apply, but they closed that job post. They're no longer accepting candidates. And you missed out your chance, that window, that teeny little window that you had to apply for that job. So I'd say, like, yeah, timing is this essence, applying to the job right away so you can stand out. And another strategy I recommend once you have applied is so then also, like what we talked about earlier, right? Personalization, providing specific examples, metrics, or, the impact that you have made at each job would be really helpful. And optional is cover letter if you really want to stand out, but personalizing it with your skill sets. So that's the app stage once you've applied. The second stage I recommend is, now when you've already applied, now shifting that applying to connecting stage. Now find out, who do you already know at that company? Maybe, you may know someone that someone else knows at this company that, is willing to refer you. Maybe, sometimes when you see a job post on LinkedIn, it shows you who the recruiter is, who the hiring manager is. Or, you can do like a creative search and see who are some of the people that you think or that are on this team that you could connect with. So I recommend looking for the hiring manager, recruiting, or someone on that team, and send like a short, thoughtful message on LinkedIn, even if it's a simple note like saying, hey, I just applied and would love, I applied to this role and would love to work with, I love to work on your team on what you guys are doing, especially, what you saw on the JD, like X, Y, and Z. And I'd be grateful if you can keep me in mind, or I'd be grateful, or I look forward to connecting with you. Whatever, you want to say that humanizes your application and that touch point. So you don't have to follow my script, but you can, just, maybe say that, oh, I noticed this on the JD and I've actually done this, or I noticed this on the job post and, I'm really excited about this. So be genuine and be honest and show your enthusiasm. And then also just keep it light and sweet. And then also, like, like I mentioned, your resume, we've already talked about that, is, improving your skill sets, the projects that you have done. And then the other thing I would recommend is just keeping an eye out, and hopefully that should work. At the end of the day, it's something that you cannot control. So I wouldn't get too fixated on this one specific company. You've noticed that you like this job. I would, so utilizing something like Teal would be very helpful, because then, this is one company that I'm interested in. And now let's find out some other companies that are similar to this company, or find other jobs that are similar to this job. That would be very helpful. So I would say, like, logging down and, having like a strategy, mapping it out. Okay, I've applied to this job. I like this job, but I want to find similar jobs to this. Or I like this company. I want to target companies similar to this company. So I'd say logging that would be really helpful, and just not being fixated on that one job. And you've done everything you can at the end of the day. But it's at the end of the day, who knows what's going on with that company, where they are. Maybe they had a boomerang candidate. Maybe, they already had someone that was far along. As a recruiter, I've hired candidates in the past. For example, I wasn't able to hire, like, I've had 3 strong candidates in final stages, but then I ended up hiring that candidate in a year later for a role. So who knows what's going on? But you've done your best. That's what matters. And you just have to keep moving forward.
Awesome. I think that's so helpful. And I should also point out that Wellfound also has like saved job alerts, so you can get those alerts right away to apply for jobs you've seen on Wellfound based on your search. And for engineers that we've got in the conversation, we have a tool called Raven, which is not the same as Teal, but has some resume matching and job fit tools, and is a job aggregator that will give you more results and is AI powered. So we'll send a link for that. Alejandro probably will find the help article on Raven and put it in the chat for all of us to look at, and I'll add it to our follow-up email as well. So definitely like really good tips there. And I love the idea of that connecting stage after sending out the application. I think a lot of people are afraid of that stage, but I think it might be more than necessary these days.
Yeah. And that's something that AI won't be able to do for you. And that shows like, okay, this is actually a real person that reached out to me. And they're genuinely interested because I went to like a lot of recruiting conferences recently, and they were saying that there's, a lot of resumes that are generated by AI. So like you personalizing your resume and personalizing that connection to the company will definitely help you stand out. And putting that extra effort really goes a long way.
Great. I see Jacob has his hand raised. Do you have a question about this question?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on like the connecting after the applying. This is the first time I heard of this, so I just wanted to thank you. That like it makes a lot of sense, and I think it would be really helpful. But I think reaching out to like a recruiter or hiring manager seems pretty straightforward after this, like after applying. But like, what would the conversation look like if you're reaching out to like someone who's not directly involved in the hiring process, like a mutual or like an alumni or something?
Okay, so your question is someone that's not directly involved with this team or this specific role. Is that correct, Jacob?
Yeah, just like at the company.
Yeah, just say that I applied to this role. I'm curious to learn more about the company. And, for example, you notice that this person has with the company for 2 years. Like that sounds like, that's an achievement. So, like celebrate those wins and say, I would love to, hear more and see if you're willing to refer me, or if you can find out any inside information about this team that I can connect to, or can you direct me to the right person that, works in this team and that they can talk about this role that they're collaborating with. So I would say like, yeah, can you put me towards the right direction, or talk to the hiring manager, or just curious, or maybe like just setting up a conversation with them, saying I'd love to chat with you for 10 minutes and just hear more about what's the culture like, what's it like working there. And that way, once you do have that initial recruiter phone call or hiring manager call, you already know a few things about the company.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, and if I can just add in something I've heard from a lot of the recruiters we've had on these calls, is one thing to keep in mind is that often companies will have referral bonuses for employees. So someone might actually get money once you're hired by them if their reference works out. And so there's sometimes like big incentive actually for people to want to make that connection for you and sort of bet on you, in the hiring process. So I wouldn't be too shy about it as long as you keep it professional, like what Jassi recommends. Uh, just keeping that in mind that there might be real benefit for them too. And it's usually not a burden. And also I think people like helping other people actually. Um, Great follow-up question. Okay, so the next question we have is about using AI to help research and negotiate your salary. So we had a couple of salary questions from the intake form. So Eric asks, what information could I leverage from AI for salary negotiations? And maybe we'll just start with that question, actually.
Yeah, this is also another great question because salary is really important, right? Cost of living is going up. There's a lot of changes happening out there, and you're going to be committed to this job. So I would say that AI can be very important in terms of like researching what other companies are paying. So even before AI, there were tools like like comparably.com or like I can't remember a few, but there's like several sites out there that you can like compare compensation, what Google is paying or the things are paying, at what current level they're paying at. So those resources already exist, and I'm happy to share that later if that's an option. Rachel, I have to look it up somewhere in my notes what that tool is, but a lot of engineers or people on the technical side, they find that tool really helpful, where you can it'll show you like market research. People actually share their compensation, and then that's one resource. But using ChatGPT to synthesize salary data from multiple sources, Oh yeah, that tool is actually called levels.fyi. Now I remember. So you could leverage tools like Levels, FYI, Glassdoor. There's also Blind, where you can go anonymously and find out like, okay, I'm interviewing with this company. Here's a compensation that they're offering. So you can actually go there as well. So those are some of the resources. Another thing you could do as a candidate, say, let's just say you're interviewing with multiple companies. I would log what are the compensations, especially like, like state of California, New York, and a few other states, they have to make it managed. Like it's by law, they have to post the compensation range if they have over 100 employees. So you'll see that and actually start logging the data, what the compensation ranges are. So that way you can, see, okay, for this specific job, I'm seeing these ranges in the market based on like the 10 jobs that you have applied to. So that's also like one way to like compare, or talk about like, get information around like, negotiating for salaries, saying, okay, I see your compensation is this, but when I was, looking at the market for these specific companies, they're offering this, or the other companies, let's just say you are actually in, interviewing with them and you are in the final stages, I would, let them know that this is what the other company is offering, and just being transparent. And also like, recruiters cannot ask you what you're currently making. Recruiters can ask, what are you looking for in terms of compensation? And you can let them know what you're targeting and, what your ideal compensation is, and just letting them know, and then asking follow-up questions like, how does that work? Does this range work for the team? And just, getting that clarity early on would be very, very helpful. So you know where you stand with the company, and where, will you be able to get the ideal compensation? So that's one, just asking the company for transparency. Second is, like sourcing your data through like levels.fyi, Glassdoor, and Blind. And then third is asking your network. Let's just say you're an engineer. I've seen this a lot of engineering colleagues, they like talk to each other like, hey, I'm making this, I'm making that. And then they exchange notes. Well, your experience is this, mine's experience is that. But, and it's really helpful, like just like, sharing with your community, like where you're at and where they are at. So that way we're educating each other. Or if you know someone that's more senior, what did you do to get there? Or how did you start out with your career? Or what compensation did you start out? And also like, this is a good starting point. And then I would say, practice negotiation script. So that's something you can definitely leverage AI for. So you can definitely like, reach out, go on ChatGPT or, any of the AI tools, and you can rehearse like tricky conversations. Say, all right, the team is asking me this. So, how do I respond to this if they ask me this specific question? So you can actually like, go back and forth with like a ChatGPT or any kind of AI tools. So that way, when you have to have that uncomfortable conversation, you're ready and you've already practiced. So that would be one, or maybe just, practicing with a friend, or, someone that maybe your roommate or someone, and just like practicing. So that way you're getting comfortable to have that conversation. And I think right now, like, as candidates, we have so many tools in front of us. Like, we have all these research tools where candidates are sharing their data. We have now AI where you can go back and forth. And then there's like this new law that was passed about 2-3 years ago where employers have to disclose their compensation ranges. And it wasn't like this like over 5 years ago. So now we have all these tools in our hands that you can leverage to go negotiate a better salary for you. So I think we are definitely in the candidate marketplace, like we're in a better market in terms of like, getting better insights about compensation ranges.
Yeah, so helpful to have some of those companies have to be transparent. And also Wellfound has a transparency lean in our job postings where jobs that don't have salaries added won't get distributed as much. There's incentive for companies to add them. So you might find a few more salaries in our system as well. And I shared our salary calculator in the chat too, which is based on some of the data that we have, which might be helpful too. Wonderful. And yeah, those other tools, I'm excited to check them out. Levels FYI, is that what it was?
Levels.fyi. Yes, I can actually try to add that in the chat.
Cool. And then we had one other question from Vinny, which was actually like super specific, but I thought it was so specific that it might be interesting for you to field, which was, what are the best tactics to request more vacation time when an offer doesn't match your current amount of vacation? Which I guess is like how do we make arguments for things that aren't salary based when we're negotiating a package?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And right now, like vacation, is essential because right now, like candidates or employees are working longer hours from what I'm hearing. Just because now we're, transitioned out of COVID to now, being in person. And it's just, there's a whole transition. Like it's important to like discharge and, just disconnect from work sometimes. So versus like during COVID, we were all home, couldn't really go anywhere. And now people are prioritizing vacation time, especially like during graduation season now. And you have to go for your, loved one's graduation or your friend's graduation. So you definitely need, there's more events happening now. So it makes sense that candidates, prioritize this. So I would say vacation is, something that could be often more negotiable than the base salary. And it's less costly for the company, which is really good. So this is a conversation that I recommend maybe having with a hiring manager if vacation is important to you. So one of the things that our company did was we actually implemented no meeting Tuesdays, so employees can focus on just not having any meetings on Tuesdays and just focus on IC work, and that way they're not feeling overwhelmed and they're able to like have a nice weekend. I know they're not, this is not vacation time related, but it helps with a better work-life balance. And just giving the feedback to the employer does really help, saying like employer our employees at our company, this is something that they were experiencing burnout rates, and it's just getting really overwhelming at certain time periods. So then HR implemented this really great strategy, which is no meetings on Tuesdays, where people were able to like start with a lot of meetings on Mondays and then no meetings on Tuesdays, and then continue with meetings Wednesday, Thursday, and Fridays. And then the weekends, employees were really happy with this new policy change. But back to vacation time, I would say that bringing it up is really important early on if this is something that's a very like important priority for you. So you can say something like along the lines like saying, thank you for the offer. I'm really excited about the opportunity. I noticed the PTO is less than what I have now in my current role, and I value that time deeply for my well-being, or spending that quality time with my family. Would there be flexibility to match my current PTO or add a few days? So let's just say it's set in stone. The company's like, okay, our PTO policy is 4 weeks, but you and your manager can discuss maybe like on Fridays or every other Fridays you can sign off earlier to spend that quality time. I know we're living in this world where there's like a hybrid workforce, and I have seen some employers where you're able to like hop out during middle of the day to go to a doctor's appointment, or pick up your school from your kid from picking up your kid from school. So just being transparent and just letting them know that I have this like vacation time that's coming up, and or if you do have like let's just say you have a major life event that's coming up, right? Letting them know when you're about to accept the offer, letting them know like I'm actually getting married, and or I'm having this major life event, and I'm going to be taking X amount of days off. I think that's something that you can share. And I have seen that in my employer. Like I have seen, colleagues where they got married, they were, they took time off for like 3 weeks straight, and they just had started the company within like, I'd say like 2 or 3 months ago. So I think having that conversation early on, like, and being transparent with the company and the team really helps you as a candidate versus like, surprising them last minute versus like, if you tell them early on, they can try to like, set up a transition period while you're going to be gone, or they know it. And then, that way they're not surprised, and they can like, like come up with a better workflow while you're gone.
That makes so much sense. I love that call to be transparent and to be upfront with what your values are. It probably helps make sure it's a good fit for you too, joining a company, how they react, actually. Awesome. So we had at least one question in the chat. Let me scroll up and see if we can start with that and fit a couple of bespoke ones in here. Let me see. Yeah, so I'll start with oh, we've got one from, wait, hold on. Sorry, my chat is being a little weird. Yeah, Natalie, you mentioned that you have a question about how startups evaluate mid-career PMs that worked at larger companies. Do you want to ask it out loud? I
Yeah,
think.
sure. So, hey, Jesse. you have a lot of startup experience, right? Something that I've been struggling with is I have a long product management career. So I'm kind of looking for like a home that I can hang out for the next 5 at least years. And one of the things I've noticed when I moved from the Bay Area to Chapel Hill is there's a big startup community here, but most of my companies that I worked at were post product market fit. And then I loved my contract. My most recent job was with Etsy as a contractor, and they're huge, but they're the first company that people see. So my question to you is, in your experience with startups, are they just closed-minded to people that have come from bigger companies? Should I kind of rule that out just to narrow the field? Or, is there something to be said for gray hair and experience? I've interviewed with several startups, and then I make it to the final round and then I don't get chosen. And the one most recently flat out said, we need somebody who's been at this ambiguity stage, that's gone through it before. And I kind of lost hope that startups might be the right fit for me.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. And you mentioned the type of startups that where you're currently based on, or what kind of startups?
No, I didn't. I don't need to go
They're
into
early
that.
stage.
I'm super picky, but I live in Raleigh, Durham, and there is a good, there's kind of a startup community here. There's a whole nother issue living in Raleigh area. It's very enterprisey, and my whole career is
Like
B2C.
B2C side.
So I'm
Yeah.
struggling.
Have you considered products that are a combination of B2B and B2C focused?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
do kind of look at that. I really am picky, so I look for things. But then anyway, I just wanted to get your hot take on,
Yeah.
I don't want to go in the weeds on my situation.
Yeah,
I
no
just
worries.
was like, I need to narrow the field somehow. So do I just need to look at medium and bigger companies in your mind, or what do you think?
I would say, one start would be just like, maybe like leveraging AI, since this discussion is around AI, like running it over AI, saying like, what are the issues that you're running into with, the market in Raleigh, North Carolina, and just seeing like how you can stand out as a candidate. Honestly, it seems like it's a very tight knit community from what I'm understanding.
Yeah.
I would
Hmm.
recommend like joining some local chapters, like product
Yep.
chapters or
Yep.
networking, and that way you can get yourself in. It's the human skills at the end of the day. And you can actually,
Yep.
you're in front of their face, like you can actually like share, I actually done this, because with product concepts, it's very similar, right? The concepts are similar, whether it's B2B side or B2C side,
I
market
agree.
side. It's
I agree.
yeah. So I know they're being too picky about it, but
Yep.
if you were just, you had the conversation, like you're applying, but you're not getting the opportunity to talk to them. And I think if you're able, like, talk to them, there's a lot of like networking events that are happening that I'm actually a part of in the Bay Area as well. And I'm seeing so many like, networking opportunities happening right now.
Yeah.
And this wasn't like this a few years ago, over 3 years ago. So I would recommend maybe even going to a conference would be one, or going to like a local chapter or a product event and happening near you
Yeah.
would be helpful, or just reaching out to someone and having a coffee conversation, and
Yeah.
talking about the company, and how do they, maybe like finding that one person in Raleigh, and they like there's a lot of people in Raleigh. I actually know a lot of people that moved to Raleigh, especially during COVID, and they come from like big tech. They've worked in Silicon Valley, Bay Area, and they moved from California to North Carolina. So I recommend reaching out to someone that has like a similar background, that started out with your background and then they transition into the startup landscape. I think that could be a good start for you. And then seeing what they did and how do they transition into that. And you can share your resume with me directly on my LinkedIn. I'm happy to like
Oh,
take a look at
great.
your resume,
Okay.
and see if there's any kind of like insights I can like provide, or to help you like land a job in the startup culture. But honestly, I don't think, like, I've hired candidates from like B2B focus side, like from like Amazon, or like working on the AWS side, and then they're now like our company is focused, some of our product lines under Learneo are very B2C focused. So I think if you have like the product fundamentals, and you have like the metrics, I know like like if you have the right metrics in place and the product impact that you've made, I have a feeling you can definitely get to a startup environment. And the company that you came from was Etsy, right?
Most recently, yeah.
Yeah, Etsy. Etsy is a startup culture, I would say.
Yeah, it's gotten big.
Yeah, it's gotten big
And
over
it's
the years.
struggling.
Yeah,
It's from another era where a lot of my companies are. That's why it's, it
yeah.
didn't start with vibe coding and all, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I'm happy to take a look at your resume and see what we could do to like strategize in terms of like, helping you find a startup, company in Raleigh.
I love it. Thank you. Come back to me, Rachel, if there's time. I have one more question about AI and like where she sees a role for, once we get past this sexy new technology and we finally realized across the chasm, you've got to make it user friendly to the masses. I want to see if she's starting to see that in the market.
Sure. Yeah, we can ask a couple more questions and come back to that. I hope we have time. It's an interesting question. We had a really short question just from BT about how many applicants are you getting per job role, basically, like on average, just a sort of curiosity about the market, I guess.
Oh, it's a very competitive market. I am overwhelmed as a recruiter, honestly. I'm spending more hours working because of, honestly, it's really hard being a recruiter right now because you're not able to help everyone. And at the end, like you have to balance like, helping as many candidates along with like helping the business what they need and finding that right talent. And you try to advocate, you get like, let's just say I select, X amount, let's just say like, 50 strong candidates, and I send it over to the hiring manager and they're like, we only have bandwidth for like interviewing 10 candidates or so. Because they can't send, they have their own day-to-day job, they have their own team, and they have to interview. So it makes it really difficult. So I would say that it is getting very competitive. However, with like AI tools coming to the market, it makes it easier to filter candidates with the keywords, and then not just the keywords, but then also like I look for candidates with the keywords, but also like how do they actually share real examples and real deliverables after like that connect to those keywords. So I would say that's something that I would focus on, is just standing out as a candidate. And maybe like I actually prioritize candidates that actually email me as a recruiter, and like they found my email, they actually done their extra homework, they found out what is my email address, and then saying, hey, I actually applied to this job. Or someone, they reached out to someone in the company and then they're sending me a referral. Like you mentioned, referrals, you get employees are love sharing referrals because they get incentivized, they get a bonus pay for it. So I get those referrals and I actually put my attention to those referrals or something that someone that the hiring manager suggested. So don't just apply, do a little bit more than applying, or do that, do that little extra credit work.
Awesome. And we have a question from Eric. Eric, do you want to ask your question out loud if you're up for it? You can give me a thumbs down if you want me to ask it. There we go.
Sure. First of all, thanks. Appreciate all your perspective. This has been super interesting. And it's kind of a broader question because somebody in my position with a lot of experience, these roles don't always appear on LinkedIn. And I was wondering if you had some suggestions on how to kind of get in. Also, what I do tends to be a little bit more, not necessarily top of mind, and it's not as cookie cutter where they're like, oh, we need a new product manager or something like that. Tends to be the consumer insights role is often an afterthought when they get to a certain point and or start kind of jury rigging it with people who's like, well, I've done a little bit of that and this. How do you approach a company then saying like, this is actually what you really need is somebody to do this type of thing?
Okay, so your question is that how do you like go above LinkedIn, right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
So how do you like, okay, besides this job, like being on LinkedIn, where else can you find to connect with that employer
Right.
or that opportunity? So I would say one would be communities. So there's a lot of communities, like there's Slack channels. Like, let's just say, what is your niche? Would like, are you in operations, or what's your niche, would you say? Or if you can give me an example.
Sure. So I'm in consumer insights. So that includes market research, user experience research, competitive intelligence.
Okay, so more on the consumer insights. So if you could find a community that you can be a part of, what's really helpful about joining these communities is usually like hiring managers or even like people that are in this profession. They're, connected in this community, and they share insights with each other, what's happening in the industry, what's happening in the market, maybe something that, that they discovered in their workplace that, other professionals in the same industry could find helpful. So one thing I recommend is if you can find those groups and communities that you can be a part of, because they actually share jobs within that community. Sometimes they don't even post it publicly. I have seen that as well, or I've heard from other, people in my network that are not recruiters, that they've actually applied because, someone was looking for a developer or someone's looking for this specific role, and they just reach out to that community. And then also would be, conferences. That's another area where you can just like go and network with these companies and that have like the specialty, or, maybe connecting with professionals in that industry in this conference, and maybe like, they can refer to you a job, like you connected, wow, Eric, this so much, and actually I'm going to put in a good word for you once we have an opening. And so that networking can go a long way too. So I would focus on that, and then like setting Google notifications as well, in terms of like, you can set up like Google notifications on like, okay, this specific job, so that way you're not just like filtering to one specific job market for like applying to jobs like, LinkedIn, but you're also getting notifications from like the Glassdoors, Wellfound, the Indeeds. You can actually set up like a very personalized, you can go to ChatGPT and ask how to get set up notifications from Google. And like, people do this for shopping. Like, I want the Nike Air Jordans. Like, when does it come available? I get it right away. You get a notification right away into your email. So you can set up notifications, and you can create a very tailored specific notifications on your Google to get alert about that job. Hopefully that's helpful, Eric.
That's super helpful. Thank you. And just one other real quick one. How tied are you recruiters to the ATS system or the ATF? I can't remember which one it is, but
ATS.
okay. Because there have been now 2 different roles that I have helped construct with the team, and then they've said, like, okay, great, you need to go ahead and apply through the system though. And I apply and I immediately get a reject thing, even though I'm like, oh my God, I've even created this role, and they're still saying that I'm not. And then when I've used some of these tools, it said like, well, you said consumer insights leader once, and they were looking for it 3 times. Do I really start then? Because it looks like a ridiculous resume if I actually follow all those recommendations where I'm saying these keywords so many times. Like, as an English major, I would look at this and be like, this is horrible. The guy does not know how to read or write something, because I'm playing. In other words, do I go ahead and lean into playing to the system, or try and have a resume that actually kind of, makes more sense in my mind?
I would say, do you leverage like AI tools too? Because I would actually run that and say, how much does this sound? How much does this role, like, my resume fit into the job description? And
Sure.
also like add your personal touch and your flavor, and then tweak it once you go through the, leveraging like, a tool like Teal, or even like, running your resume through ChatGPT or Perplexity, any of them, and then add your personal examples. Or you can do it either way, add your personal examples, and then you can ask the AI to provide some feedback. I would work with a combination of just not just seeing your resume on your own, but then also like making sure that you're capturing the feedback on the keywords. So I would do a combination of both.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
We also have a Discord channel that Alejandro's going to share at the end, which we're actually at I just realized we're at the end. But maybe I'll switch to that channel. But we've got a resume profile level up channel that you can plug your resume into, and our community will give you some feedback. But also, I always give feedback on whoever posts their resume there. So if you want someone to take a look at, and even if you post the job there, I can take a look at it and offer some personalized feedback for anybody. And also, there's a couple other tools that I'll
Yeah.
point out there. Like there's a online tool called JobScan. I think it's just jobscan.com, that also you can plug in like the job that you're applying to and put your resume in, that can help you match it. And then I'll plug Raven one more time for any engineers. It will be eventually released to everyone, I think. But we have some like resume matching tools in that as well. So some other things to look out for. So Al's put the Discord channel in there if you want to join. It's just like also a nice way to talk with other candidates about what they're going through and sort of not be so one-man soldier through the job seeking experience. And lastly, we have a survey that's going to go into the chat as well. If you can fill this up, it's so helpful to me to find out what candidates are really looking for these Ask a Recruiter sessions or just future events that we're trying to pull together to get those candidate resources directly to the people who need them. And also this is a way to sign up for future ones. We had referrals come up a couple times in this call. And in 2 weeks, we have a Ask a Recruiter with a young recruiter who was previously at TikTok and is now at a firm, who's going to be focused on like how to do networking and referrals and how to take that part. So Jacob, you might be interested in that one. So feel free to sign up through this. I'll make sure you've got the invite. And then that's it. Jassi, this was amazing. I know we didn't get to everyone's questions, but we had some really good ones. I'll try to wrap up some resources for some of the questions that came up that weren't answered. So when you get the follow-up email, I'll be sending out some extra things with it. And feel free to also reach out to our team anytime, and keep watch on our LinkedIn Wellfound profile. We'll be posting future events there as well, just to keep in touch. So thank you again, Jassi. This was amazing. I love your spirit. I love how much you want to be here for the candidates. And I hope that this was helpful to everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Great chatting with you. And I just dropped another resource on the chat. It's called Career Dreamer, and it was created by Google Gemini. So feel free to check that tool out. It helps you like map out your career with your skill sets. Have a great your Wednesday.
Yeah. Have a great day, everyone. Ready to find your next role or discover top talent? Visit us at wellfound.com.